Welcome everyone, it's Shari Carroll for SimonsStamp.com, and I have a mixed media project that I'm titling Love Candies. I'm starting out with the Tim Holtz vignette box, and I'm going to be whitewashing this box just to lighten up that color a bit. So what I'm doing is adding some gesso along with some water and a flat brush. I like the flat brush so I can get into those corners and edges, and I'll make this as light as I want. You can always go back with another layer if you want to lighten it up. To lighten it up more, use a little bit more gesso than water. And here's how the box looks once it's dry. It has that nice light colored finish, and you can still see the wood grain. I'll be working with the Tim Holtz True Love colorized dies for these, and I've cut each of these pieces out either in white or Desert Storm. So I'm going to be coloring all my pieces using some Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated inks, and I'm using our small detail brushes so I have control over these small pieces. I've used Cheeky for the first color, and next I'll be moving on to some Cappuccino, and these are for the lower layers or the chocolatey looking areas. So for the first one, I'm just going to edge around the outside, since the center will be covered up by other layers. And for the base layer of the candy, I'm using our Mocha ink, and again, I'll just be coloring the outside edge and making sure this is a nice, rich, dark brown. For each of the candies, there's a paper edge shape, and for this one, I'm using the blush ink. I want it a little bit darker than my circle. And now for the assembly, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp foam squares. You can use either the .04 or .08 to put these together. There are embossing lines so that you can tell exactly how that piece goes on top, and then you can continue layering these until you have your candy. For the little paper edge, I'll be using the Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue, and I'll just be adding dots around. And then I can flip this over and lay it right on top of that dark piece and go around that circle. There are also dies for some icing to add to the top, and I've just cut those in white and left them plain. Once they were done, I added a little bit of glossy accents so they had some shine. Once I had my candies done, I've also added in some flowers, and these are from the Tim Holtz brushstroke flowers, and these are nice and tiny to work with. So what I did with these is I started off with some blush ink. I want the base layer to be a little bit darker. And again, I'm using our fine detail brush so I can get in right into that center and color the base. These flowers are 2 layers, so I've cleaned off my brush a little and I'm going back in with some cheeky ink, and I want this top portion to be a little bit lighter than the base. And once those were colored, I've added some Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue to the back side of the papers, and I can assemble those together. I've also cut out some leaves, and to color those, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Positively Saturated Aspen ink. And again, I'm coloring the base a little bit darker than the top portions. I'm adding a touch of brown to the base of the leaves, and for that, I'm using the Cappuccino ink. And to glue these layers together, again, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue and just adding little dots on the back of the paper. Now I'm ready to start the assembly of the heart base or the candy box, and I've cut these out from white cardstock and pattern paper, and also our new champagne cardstock. For this first piece, and this will be the base that sits behind all the candies, I'm using our glue stick on the back side, and this is going to fit over a second piece of white cardstock to give me a nice firm base. This next piece is the outline of the box, and I want to give this a little bit of shading, so I'm using the Positively Saturated Latte ink since it's nice and light. I'm making sure to get down at that bottom edge and also the inside of the heart at the top to make it look like shadowing. Once this piece is colored, I'll be using the Simon Says Stamp Craft Tacky Glue once again, and I want to make sure that I get this really well covered so that nothing curls up. And then I can place it onto the base, making sure that I have all the edges matched up. Next, I'll be adding the strip that goes to the left, and again, I'm using the Simon Says Stamp glue, and I'm making sure I have that well covered. And this will go right on the edge, and this will act as a highlight or upper piece to that box. The next piece is a really thin piece, and I'm using my glue once again. This is cut from the Simon Says Stamp Champagne cardstock, and this piece will look as though it's the top edge of the box. There are lines on this die cut that are embossed in to help you line up everything, but it will go all the way to the top and then the inside edge on the left. And now that the base of the box is complete, I can start adding in my candies and flowers. And I'm using foam tape once again to give it a little bit of added dimension. And I'm arranging these for my flowers to go on the upper right, moving down, and the candies on the left, going all the way down to the bottom. Next, I want to decorate the box, and I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Heart Chain die along with some champagne cardstock. And I'm using the centers of the hearts and also our Simon Says Stamp foam squares that are black with that shorter profile. With my tweezers, I'm going to place the hearts around the outer edges so that I have a nice design and some reflection. I've added foam tape and squares to the back of my box candy, and I'll place this in the center of the box. And to finish off the inside, I've added some foam squares to a sentiment strip, and this says, "I just love you." And I'll place this right at the bottom so it lines up to those hearts. With the outside die cut piece, I'm adding some Simon Says Stamp glue just in dots around the hearts and adding them as a trim piece along the outside of the box. I was pleasantly surprised to see that they fit perfectly along the edge of this 5.5-inch box, and I only needed to cut out 3 of the heart chains. I like to give this a little wipe with a paper towel to make sure I have all the excess glue removed, and here's how my finished project looks. I love the little bit of the reflective champagne colored cardstock in the inside along with some pink colored candies and flowers together. I hope you've enjoyed this project as a sweet treat gift for somebody you love, and as always, thanks so much for watching.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.